Welcome to Storyteller, where I try to find the wildest story I can each week, and Teresa hears it all for the first time. I'm Courtney.
And I'm Teresa.
Do I have a story for you?
Yes.
So today we're talking about a man who should have been just a footnote in a prison file. Instead, he became one of the most nauseating examples of what happens when the system decides a monster is safe and seals the paperwork and quietly drops him back into the world like a bad habit. This is the story of Arthur John Shawcross, also known as the Genesee River Killer, a man who killed children, was handed a plea deal, served 14 years, and then was released, only to hunt again. 12 women in Rochester disappeared into the same river gorge he loved to fish, like he was blending his hobbies with his violence. And if you're thinking, surely there were warning signs. Oh, Lord, there were warning signs on warning signs on warning signs.
He was a walking red flag.
Absolutely. Because this story isn't just about what Shawcross did. It's also about who ignored it, who enabled it, and who minimized it, and who acted shocked later. So take a breath, because this is a horrible story.
Is it Shawcross?
Shawcross, yeah.
Okay.
Have you heard of him, do you think?
Haven't,
Okay. Yeah, it's going to get rough. Trigger warning, blanket trigger warning. Everything's bad. It's like blanket trigger warning for everything.
Can I just duck out then?
No, you have to stay. People listening to this can be like, well, I'm going to go now. So Arthur John Shawcross was born at the U.S. Naval Hospital at 4:14 a.m. on June 6, 1945 in Kittery, Maine, to Arthur Roy and Elizabeth Nee. Her last name would have been Yerkerit. I can't say it. Shawcross is her new last name. According to his mother, he weighed 5 pounds at birth and was born 1 month premature. And as a result, he spent 20 days in the hospital. And I don't think there was like a ton of weren't doing the bonding just overall during this time period, but definitely with Arthur and his mom, they were not bonding.
They're like, no.
No.
Nature versus nurture thing.
Yeah.
Leave it all to nature, huh? No nurturing.
Arthur Roy, the father, was from Jefferson County, New York, and his mother, Elizabeth, who went by Bessie or Betty. So, and it's very interchangeable in all of the research. Like, even in a same article, she can be referenced as Bessie and Betty. So,
That'd be so confusing for me.
I'm like, what?
Pick a name and roll with it, please.
And I didn't when I was writing this. I was like, fuck. So just, Bessie, Betty, same person. She was born in New Hampshire. And during World War II, Bessie got a position as a pipe fitter's helper at a Navy yard in Portsmouth, which is where she met her future husband, Arthur Roy. Once the war was over, Arthur Roy was transferred to the Naval Hospital in Portsmouth near Kittery, Maine, which is where he met Bessie Betty.
Just come up with a whole different name for her. Let's call her Becky.
So we made her for another third name. The couple were married on November 23rd, 1944, and would go on to have 4 children together. Arthur, Donna, Jean, and James. Shortly after her first son was born, Mrs. Shawcross took little Arthur back to Watertown, New York, which is where her husband, his family was from. That's where he grew up. And she stayed with her sister-in-law until her husband finished up his stint in the military.
Okay. I was like, why?
Why did it? Yeah. Their meeting and new life together sounds wonderful, but Arthur Sr. was hiding a horrible secret, one that wouldn't be made known to his wife or the rest of his family until Arthur Jr. was about 8 years old. And I'm not going to tell you it now.
Who's molesting him?
Nope. Actually, not that. Yeah. Not
He had a secret family.
Damn, you're good.
Did he really?
Yeah. Yes. We'll get there.
Military my ass.
military. According to one of Arthur's cousins, he was a gorgeous baby and had big, beautiful dark eyes and a sweet little face, but there was something off about him as well. The baby never cried. He frequently had a blank, vacant expression on his face. So there just wasn't a lot of emotion, even as a baby, nothing, I guess. So
Do you have that thing where they can't feel pain though?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard about that? They break bones and they don't even know.
That is wild. Could you imagine? Oh my God.
And I hang there, I'm like, fuck! I'm dying.
So I cut my foot last time I were to Virginia. I was like, this is it! Can you bleed out? Where are the arteries? Shawcross was born with a genetic condition called Jacobs syndrome, though, where an individual's genetic makeup contains an extra copy of their Y chromosome, and that can manifest in some learning disabilities or perhaps ADHD, but he still could feel pain. But it can also present as impulsive or antisocial behaviors, though it varies between each person. So it's just this wide range of things that can affect them. Okay. At the age of 5, it was reported that by a family member that little Artie, as he was called, had missed 33 days of kindergarten and still used baby talk. He wasn't doing great, I guess. But he was also described as odd by those around him, including his own relatives. And he frequently had nightmares, and he wet the bed at till he was 15 or something like that.
Okay.
So there were some things going on. Yeah. After Shawcross's little sisters and brother were born, his mother didn't pay nearly as much attention to him, and Bessie's oldest child, Arthur, seemed to especially crave her attention. He was not doing well with being the oldest child and not getting all that attention that he used to. And I still don't really know that it was all that much attention to begin with. So he was like, I fucking hate these kids.
So yeah, you do. It's the oldest child. You're basically an only child for a while there.
Completely different.
And if you're not getting any attention, hardly any attention.
Yeah.
Then another kid, shit.
This sucks. Family members would later say that the family was always together and out doing things, out in nature and camping or going on day trips or fishing. But Artie always seemed to be an outsider, even on these little outings. He's with his family, but he seemed to be removed almost from them and not a part of their group. So
was that his choice or their choice, do you think?
I don't even know if anybody was really doing it on purpose, but it doesn't seem like it was his choice. He definitely was I want to be a part of your group, but whatever was going on kind of made.
Just too odd.
Yeah, just so weird. In a later interview, Art said that he felt as though his own parents didn't like him as much as they liked his brothers and sisters. Arthur was also a hypochondriac, beginning from a very young age. Always seemed to be suffering from some sort of imaginary illness and the desperate ploy for attention. So yeah, home life wasn't great for Artie, and school was no different. So he missed a whole bunch of days in kindergarten, but in first grade, he was not missing any school. I think he had perfect attendance, and he was earning A's and B's. He was doing great. But despite all of this, his teachers said he had he was very lazy work habits. So it seems
that just means that he was too intelligent and he was getting bored.
Sure. But I think just for first grade. After that, he was I peaked. No, but yes, whenever you hear
that. Lazy work habit, though, how are you getting A's and B's if you have a lazy work habit? It's just because the work is too easy for you, so it makes it seem like you have a lazy work habit.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's how I feel about it, at least.
Yeah, they're not being challenged enough and stuff. So I think that was the case then, and maybe second grade, and then it was the following year, he began conversing with imaginary friends and not hiding this at all. He was probably having a lot of imaginary friends because he had no friends in real life. So, and he was relentlessly mocked by his peers who called him weird and gave him the new nickname of, instead of Artie, Audie. Kids are so fucking mean and creative. By the age of 8, Arthur became a bully, and he often went after younger, smaller children that weren't as likely to put up much of a fight. So it's no surprise that he had trouble making friends. A relative of Art's, who later refused to give their identity, said of Art's early childhood, Artie was a weird little bastard from the time he learned to walk.
Jesus. That's probably his grandma.
Really,
that sounds like a grandma thing to say.
I think it was an uncle because I'm like, a fucking uncle would say that. I feel like my uncle would say that about me. Beginning around the age of 8, Arthur became a compulsive masturbator. A habit that his mother knew about and tried her hardest to discourage. On repeated occasions, she caught him and she would severely punish him. And Arthur later claimed that she was doing awful stuff to punish him. And one of the things he always came back to was she put a broom handle in his bum bum. Yeah. I don't know if that's true, though. I really, we're going to learn about this guy. He's got some deep-rooted hate for his mom, and he is just making up shit. So I don't know that she did that. But Betty, I hope you were. He also said that she would threaten him with a butcher knife on occasion. Much later, when asked, Betty vehemently denied any of this happening. But you don't know who to believe. So just giving you guys all the... But even if she denied this, Arthur would, for the rest of his life, he would not stop with the accusation against his mother and other family members. Art would later claim that his mother used to punish him with a belt, the broom handle, and his father would beat him using his belt buckle, and would often hurt him so severely that he would be bleeding and covered in, injuries. Shawcross claimed that he had his first sexual encounter with his Aunt Tina, saying that the two had intercourse when he would have been about 9. Again, Aunt Tina was like, "Never." Actually, I think this is the aunt.
That's the one I call him a weird little bastard.
I actually think this is the aunt. There's one of the family members that he accuses, and later, when people are going back through his life, they're like, there is no relative with that name. Oh. So I would think he has an Aunt Tina kind of thing.
So this might be an imaginary friend.
Maybe. Imaginary Aunt Tina. Yes. She's handsy. He also claimed to have a relationship with his younger sister, and that again, trigger warning, this is all bad, his mother would perform oral sex on him and made him do it to her. Okay. Completely unknown whether any of this is true, because again, Arthur Shawcross is a fucking liar. But wow, the shit he says. So so whether the abuse was actually happening, one thing absolutely did happen would flip the Shawcross family on its head. Things really seemed to go south for Artie around 9 years old when his mother found out about his father's other family in Australia. From his time in the Marines. While in the South Pacific in February 1943, Arthur Roy went to a dance thrown by the U.S. Marine Corps, and there he met Miss Thelma June Charcos, I think is how you say her last name. And according to a 1944 article that was published in the Watertown Daily Times, where Arthur Roy is from and his entire family is from, eventually everyone in the Shawcross family moves at this, these two streets crossing, right outside of town, and everyone is right there. They call it Shawcross Corners. It's just Shawcrosses out there. And in that paper, there's a article published how Arthur Roy had married Thelma June, and they had a child together named Harley Roy. But 2 years later, when Bessie shows up with a new baby and is married, no one apparently is like, what about the other one?
I just think that she divorced him, passed away.
Nobody brought it up. Nothing. So
not my business.
I know, nobody. I mean, she moved in with her sister-in-law, with Arthur's sister, and she wasn't even so did he say anything?
That is his other wife?
Yeah. Does she know? Or nothing. So now, even before Betty found out about Arthur Sr.'s secret family, Betty was loud, abrasive, and apparently had a vocabulary that would make a sailor blush, according to another family member. And her ire reached new levels after the first wife's discovery, and the dominating force in the Shawcross household she always had been, but she went to new heights.
So was he still going back to Australia and
I don't think so.
I think he just
dropped because how they found out is this woman like wrote a letter to, I don't think she wrote it to Art Sr. She wrote it to like a family member, and then a family member was like, hey, wife number one. And
she wants to know when you're coming back.
Yeah, or can you support your kid? Like, you know, like he just dropped him like a hot potato, I guess. So I'm like, okay, cool.
I don't feel like that's a secret family. It's probably just a prior family that he didn't.
He forgot about?
Yeah.
There's secret family, abandoned family, however you want to.
That's been like I imagine like a shotgun wedding type of situation. Like he was in the military.
Yeah.
He got her knocked up. Was like, oh shit, I gotta do the honorable thing.
Yeah.
And marry her, and then
never went back. Yeah, it's
and then he found, Betty, Becky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And just like, that's my true love. I'll go in that route.
Yeah, she was not as true. She was fucking mean. I guess she was mean before this, and after this, she just like.
I'd be fucking mean too.
But things never really returned to normal after his second family came to light, and she was. I mean, family members would be like, you could fucking hear Betty all days of all hours of the day, just fucking screaming. But to make matters even worse, it was around this time that Artie suffered his first of many, many possible traumatic brain injuries when he was hit in the head with a rock and was hospitalized. He got stitches and suffered from numbness for years afterwards. Like, this guy has so many blows to the head, and that is something that comes up time and time again with these serial killers. Like, well, where was the traumatic brain injury? And then you learn about repeated ones. So this was his first. Around age 10, Arthur began stealing from local stores and homes around Watertown, but was never arrested when he was younger. He claimed in later interviews that at the beginning, at the age of 13, he had sex with two of his male cousins, again, who denied the allegations later. They were like, what? No.
We're not even real.
Yeah. And then began having relations with his sister Jeannie, which he said went on through his middle and junior high school years, prompting his mother to threaten to castrate him when she found out.
So is that one true then?
No idea. Again, denied completely later, and it's really hard to believe Arthur because he's just a fucking liar. So, yeah. He also claimed that around this time he had sex with a female neighbor, and when they were caught by her brother, the brother forced Shawcross to have oral sex with him. So he was just doing it with everyone, it sounds like. Art also said that around this time he was raped by a male stranger and began having sex with a variety of animals.
Oh my god. I was just going to say he was good with everybody but the damn...
Everybody but the dog. No, yeah. I guess he preferred sheep, chickens, dogs, and occasionally a goat. I hate it here. Who picked this story? At the age of 15, he was only in the 8th grade, and he was still wetting the bed and having nightmares. And he was also becoming increasingly violent, especially like if he was even kind of provoked. But it sounds like as it went on, he didn't have to be provoked. He would just... and that's when the torturing of small animals started and the setting of fires. So there's a thing... I can't even remember the technical term for it now, but it's essentially like the 3 things that are marks of a serial killer, and it's bedwetting, torturing small animals, and setting brush fires. Like that seems to come up in almost every incident of a
I definitely knew the animals.
Yeah,
they always seem to start off with small animals.
Yeah. So, and yep, he's got them all, and yeah, a lot of stuff. He does everything. So at 16, Art was described by those acquainted with him as moody and a loner. He joined General Brown High School's wrestling team, but he got hit in the head with a discus and had to spend 4 days in the hospital. So that's head trauma number 2 for those keeping. So things are not going good. By 17, he had only made it to the 9th grade, and his grades fell to the lowest they had ever been. And he eventually dropped out of school completely completely at the age of 19. I would have given up long before that.
Yeah.
A 19-year-old
dropping out. They're like 15 years old and stuff. 19.
So 1960, he's 19. He finally gives up on school.
I think school gave up on him.
With a lot of extra time on his hands now, he went all in on robbing homes in the area and even a Sears store, which got him 18 months probation and then an additional 6 months tacked onto that when he was arrested again for second-degree burglary. So he was like, I know I'm on probation, but I'm going to keep robbing shit. It was around this time when he was on probation that he met his first wife, a woman named Sarah Louise Chatterton. And they were married on September 13th, 1964. Kenny's birthday. Ooh. Not the same year, but same day.
Do you guys remember who Kenny is? That is her dad that looks like Tom Hanks now.
Yeah.
But back in the day, he looked like Jesse Springfield.
Rick Springfield. Jesse's girl. Yes.
Yes, Rick Springfield. So
I think last time we called him like Rick Springsteen or something.
So weird.
Anyways, let us know if you want his number.
Yeah.
But they didn't.
He's currently building shelves right now.
Mm-hmm, yeah. No.
So he's handy.
He's very handy. Yep. But they did not even consummate their marriage for several weeks after the wedding, which seems fucking shocking when Art has been saying he's fucking everyone and thing from Shawcross Corner to Main Street.
Too busy with the chickens.
I guess. He was like, I don't know, Sarah's gonna be any good. Yeah. So that's what I'm like, okay, they didn't consummate their like he was nervous, and when you listen to him, he's had all this experience. Like, what? So I just don't know what I believe. Art and Sarah had a son together named Michael, who was born roughly a year after their wedding on October 2nd, 1956. Art could not hold down a job to save his life, except for one that he claimed was his favorite. Later, he said that was the best job I ever had, and it was when he worked as a butcher.
Damn it. Could have predicted that.
Chicken farmer.
If you would have given me one guess. I was gonna say butcher.
After less than 2 years of marriage, Sarah and Art divorced, and he relinquished all of his rights to his son, who he never saw again. And honestly, he probably dodged a bullet there, little Michael. Like, after getting divorced, another arrest and another brain injury followed during this time period. The arrest was for chasing down a 13-year-old kid who threw a snowball at his car. He chased the kid into his house and was ready to beat his ass, I guess, before somebody stepped in for throwing a snowball. So totally normal reaction.
It's not something I would do. Totally do that.
Not. The head injury came after.
I don't know if I'd go to their house.
Right.
Totally different. I would absolutely 100% chase down some little punk with their snowball in the car. Don't do it.
That's
because I can't run really fast. So I have to chase it down in my car.
There's vehicular charge. The head injury came after a fall off of a 40-foot ladder.
Jesus.
Yeah. But before Art could cause any more ruckus, on April 7th, 1966, Arthur Shawcross was drafted into the U.S. Army. After some initial defiant behavior, Art eventually settled into life in the Army and served one tour of duty with the Force Supply and Transport Company of the 4th Infantry Division in Vietnam. Because obviously, if you're already a little unhinged, the best possible solution is going to Vietnam. Great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What could go wrong? Anyways, in September of 1967, while on a 30-day furlough back at home in New York State, just before being shipped off overseas, Shawcross met a woman at the bar named Linda Neary. And since they both figured he probably wasn't coming back from Vietnam alive, they decided to get married. What? Super romantic. When the marriage announcement ran in the paper, Sarah, Art's first wife, called Linda and basically said, "Girl, don't do it." Sarah warned her that Art was violent and that after their son was born, she had been genuinely afraid of what he might do to the child. Linda chalked it up to jealousy or bitterness and shoved the warning out of her brain and went through with the marriage anyways. Shawcross was finally shipped to Vietnam in 1967, where, just to be clear, he worked out as a supply parts specialist. That's it. that's what he was doing. Because it'll come up later. In 1968, while on leave from the Army in Hawaii, Shawcross had a fling with that resulted in the birth of a daughter, Margaret Maggie Deming, and she was born on Valentine's Day in 1969. Hey, Casey's birthday! And he didn't know about this girl for a very, very long time.
Okay.
So, yeah, he had no idea. By October of 1968, after his time in Vietnam, Shawcross was sent to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, where he worked as an armorer, repairing weapons, and he was honorably discharged in the spring of 1969 and moved to Clayton, New York, where Linda Neary was from. That's where her family was. After returning from Vietnam, Art began spinning wildly graphic stories to anyone who would listen about his supposed elite combat missions. He claimed a kill count of 39 and told elaborate tales about brutally murdering young women. Stories that focused heavily on sexual assault and cannibalism. Yeah. Again, he was a supply specialist, so...
Why would you even want to brag about that,
I have
though?
no
Even if
idea.
that were true.
Why would you tell people that? Go to therapy. Either way, you need therapy.
Yeah.
When Art reunited with Linda, things went downhill.
Was she like, oh, you made it back?
What are you doing here? Yeah, went downhill fast. The marriage turned violent almost immediately. Should have listened to Sarah. After killing the couple's dog and then attempting suicide, Army doctors advised Linda to have Art committed. She chose not to. She was like, I don't feel like this is my thing to...
Yeah, I barely know the guy.
I know. She's like, I don't know if he's... I don't know. And so she was like, no, I'm not going to do it. Like, she also said she chose not to because of some religious, like, belief. Now, what belief is that? So anyways, she chose not to. And in June of 1969, shortly after the evaluation and not committing him, Art got drunk and beat Linda so badly that she miscarried their baby she was carrying. She was 4 months pregnant and she divorced him not long after. So
marriage number 2 down.
Done. Yeah. Art went right back to stealing and was eventually caught, sentenced to 5 years in prison. He served only 22 months after saving the life of a prison official during a riot in October of 1971. He was paroled into the care of his loving parents, who he had such a famously healthy relationship with. And Arthur Shawcross returned to Watertown, New York, which, as it turns out, was a very, very bad thing. Once back in Watertown, Art landed a job with the Public Works Department and spent most of his days working at the dump. And just 3 months after his release in January of 1972, Art managed to swindle yet a third woman into marrying him. I know.
So third marriage, she has a baby, an illegitimate child.
He's got 2. Well, yeah, he's got one he knew about.
The one, the daughter that he doesn't know about.
Yeah, and he would have had a third one, but he made Linda miscarry. So, her name was Penny Nichols Sherbino, and she was
Penny Nickel.
Yeah, Penny Nickel.
That's cute. I don't know why.
I actually never even registered with me. Penny Nickel Sherbino. And she was a single mother of 2 and had known Art back in high school. So she brought with her 2 kids. 5 dates in, Penny discovered that she was pregnant, and things moved fast after that. They got married and moved into subsidized housing known as the Cloverdale Apartments. Penny miscarried the baby. She never said it was because of this one, but the marriage did continue. They didn't split up after that. And Art's bizarre behavior showed up almost immediately. Despite working at the dump, Art insisted that Penny make sure he had a stark white, perfectly pressed shirt to wear every single day to the dump.
You're so mad.
I feel like
that's not happening.
Yeah. He refused to get a driver's license and he rode his bike everywhere. And one day he left a bouquet of flowers on a neighbor's doorstep with a note that read, "These are for your grave."
Sorry.
When I was reading that, I was like, oh my God, now he's going for our 4th woman. No. He said, for your grave. And when Penny's like, bro, what the fuck? We live in this apartment complex. You can't be going, why did you do that? He's like, well, I'm not going to talk about it.
Because some neighbors are assholes.
He really went for it.
I'm just saying. Some neighbors are assholes, and that was savage.
Yeah. So then there was the incident where Art was caught spanking a small neighbor boy and then stuffing grass down the child's pants.
That's random.
So weird. And the stuffing of grass, just keep that in mind. That will come up again. Penny ended up paying Art's $10 fine after the grass down the pants incident. One of the few seemingly normal things about Art was his love of fishing. It was all he wanted to do in his free time. He frequently stopped to fish along the Black River, which runs through Watertown. And one of the people in the book that I was reading about this just called it the Black. The river, just the Black, and I was like, spooky.
Spooky.
Stop calling it that. Penny did say later that it was a good thing they weren't relying on him, like feeding them with all the fishing, because he never fucking brought anything back. It was on one of these fishing trips that he met a local 10-year-old boy named Jack Owen Blake. And Jack is the cutest friggin' kid you ever see. I have pictures of him all put on, and I'm like, you're an angel. Sweet little Jack was born to Mary Blake, a tough woman who had grown up in a terrible home and transitioned straight into a brutal marriage. She was married to Pete Blake. His name was Pete. She was dating Pete, and I don't know, they were on a date one night, and she's like, they were driving. She immediately was like, I gotta get out of this car. I have to get out of this car. She was like, let me the fuck out of the car. He stops in the middle of nowhere and she walks home. Well, as she's walking home, she can hear like sirens and everything. And she's like, Pete got in a car accident, and it was exactly what happened. I think he went to like steal something and was leaving like right after he drops her off. He goes and steals something and is trying to run from the cops, and he gets a car accident and he loses his arm. And so
she knew. She had that premonition.
She totally did. Yeah. And she was like, I just knew I had to get the fuck out of that car. And so
but then I need to marry this guy.
Well, she was pregnant. And so after the car accident, she realizes that she's pregnant, and her mom's like, well, get Pete over here so we can get you married. And I guess, I mean, the man he turned to drinking, and because he doesn't have an arm, and so he was just a total asshole. And so Mary, they have, I don't know, I think 8 kids or something together, but in there, Jack's biological father was a man named Bob. Bob was really nice to Mary, and he was really nice to her other kids. And when Pete was out drinking all of their money, Bob would like bring them food. He would give her money. Like, he made sure the house, everyone was taken care of, because Big Pete, there'll be a little Pete. Big Pete was not, he wasn't really great at doing it. So, Mary's parents had forced her to marry Big Pete.
She didn't explain to him they got in a car accident because he was running away from a place that he just robbed.
Yeah.
Like, maybe that's not marriage material.
Mm-mm. Her family was like, nope. The couple would go on to have 9 children. It's believed Jack was the only one fathered by a different man. But Mary eventually was like, fuck, Bob's nice, Mary later said of Big Pete, he gave me kids, but he didn't want no part of them. When Big Pete wasn't drunk, which wasn't very often, he barely had paid attention to his children. And when he did, he wasn't nice to the kids. Like, she's like, he was always giving me children, but he didn't want anything to do with them, except for Jack. And Big Pete knew full well that Jack wasn't his, but Mary said she never understood why, whether it was Jack's like just sweet personality. I guess you could tell like that was her favorite kid. You could tell and stuff. Like, she was like, he was an angel. He was super sweet. And he was born something when he was, being delivered, it messed up his foot. And so he had a little limp. And so he was sweet. He had this little limp.
Aww.
And Big Pete was just so gentle with him. I guess he like kind of put him on a pedestal and everything. So Jack was the 7th of 9 siblings. He had strawberry blonde hair, freckles, big ears, and a pug nose. And according to his family at the time of his death, he was a typical fun-loving 5th grader who once saved his older sister from drowning in the Black, as Mary Blake puts it, from the river. So, but on May 7, 1972, during one of their afternoon fishing together, Shawcross's violent fantasies came to a head.
Aww.
Jack disappeared after telling his mother he was going outside to play near the Cloverdale apartments. Just days earlier, Jack had brought Art to the door of his home and asked his parents if he could go fishing with the older man. Mary told him no. Even Big Pete, during a rare moment of clarity, came to the door and told Jack no himself. He was like, fucking weird. We don't know who this guy is. Art appeared completely unbothered with the rejection and went on his way. When it became clear Jack was missing, Mary remembered that encounter. Later, her youngest son, little Pete, finally told her that the last time he saw Jack, he was headed to visit his friends at the Cloverdale apartments. Mary immediately pressured the police to look at Shawcross. Watertown police did not. They went to the house.
That's not the neighbor that he left the flowers with, is it?
No. Okay. They were a couple blocks up from these apartments, so they weren't in the same, but yeah. It's so, the police seemed to have it out for the Blake family, in part because Mary's brothers, when they were growing up, had long criminal records. Like I said, Mary grew up in a really bad home. Again, her parents were always fighting or drinking, and so her brothers would turn to stealing to essentially make sure everyone ate. And so the Watertown police were like, you guys are white trash, you're no good, and they did not investigate Jack's disappearance. It was awful. It's awful. Officers lightly questioned Art and then left him alone. What followed barely qualifies as an investigation. Police bounced between refusing to investigate Jack's disappearance at all to barging into the Blake home, claiming they had received a tip. They received a tip that Jack was buried in their basement.
Oh.
He wasn't. Mary waved goodbye to the officers, who she affectionately called the Piggy Wiggies, and wondered if anyone was going to take her missing boy seriously. The answer came in September. So he goes missing in May, and in September, Helene Hill, a Rochester native who had recently divorced, was visiting Watertown with her daughter Karen and her 2-year-old for the Labor Day weekend. They were staying with Helene's new boyfriend's family. So he was from Watertown, so they went up there. She wasn't even going to bring Karen, but Karen was like, I'm going with you. I want to go away for the weekend. Wanting to make a good impression, Helene decided quickly to wash her hair while Karen, a responsible and cautious child, played in the front yard. The last time Helene saw her daughter, Karen was playing with a little white bunny that belonged to one of her boyfriend's sister's kids. Helene told her, honey, mommy's going to go wash her hair. You need to stay in the yard, okay? Karen replied, I will, Mom. When Karen didn't return after a few hours, Helene began searching the neighborhood, asking if anyone had seen her daughter. After
a few hours, she didn't look out the front window and see she wasn't in the yard anymore?
She did, and she was like, okay, I'm sure she's just playing, at the boyfriend's family's house. She wasn't, I think she started kind of, looking in the direct vicinity, but she was like, okay, I'm not, she's a responsible child, I'm not freaking out, and then it was... time went on, and she was like, well, fuck. Okay. Yeah. So she called the Watertown police at 5:45. An officer arrived within 5 minutes. If Jack Blake had been afforded this same kind of urgency, things maybe would be different, but he was not. Karen Ann Hill had large chocolate brown eyes and honey blonde hair. Her mother kept long and would always do up and everything. The next time Karen was seen, that hair would be caked with mud. Her upper body was naked from the waist down, and her upper half was covered in rocks. Her throat was packed with grass and leaves. She was found beneath the old iron bridge crossing the Black River. On that same bridge, multiple witnesses had seen Art Shawcross near around the time Helene last saw her daughter. Finally, police connected the dots. Karen's murder, Jack Blake's disappearance, and Art's bicycle had been seen, near Karen's crime scene. So they're like, this is all connected. After ignoring the whole Jack thing forever. Yeah. Shawcross was brought in for questioning. On September 5th, 3 days after Karen Hill was murdered, a tip was called in telling police exactly where Jack Blake's body could be found in the woods. I still don't know who that tip was from, but it was credible. And after 4 months, Jack was finally located.
And he was in jail, so he didn't call the tip in himself.
Yep.
So somebody knew that he had done
this. And
somebody either watched, saw, something. Or he said something, and someone put all this information.
Watertown.
I don't know if it was male or female.
No, it didn't say. I was like, that's crazy. Find that out. So, Watertown police, still committed to their vendetta, did not notify Big Pete or Mary. And they found out the same way everyone else did, by watching the news. That's how they found out.
That's fucked.
Yeah.
Oh my God. They were
so fucking mean. Like, I don't care what a family is like. Like, this is a little baby, went missing. Like, you guys are... So, the pathologist determined that Jack had been suffocated and his remains showed signs of sexual abuse. Shawcross later admitted to luring Jack into the woods, forcing him to strip naked, and making him run, and then killing him so like he could chase Jack. Ugh, it's awful. He admitted to returning to the... this is hard. He kept going back to the body. You can decide what he does there. Are you gonna leave?
I don't like this one.
It's awful. Oh my God, it's so just heartbreaking.
You might need a drink after this.
He's the sweetest little looking angel. And Jack seems to have been his mother's angel. Like, had such a hard life, but just everything about Jack from when he was first born, and when she talks about him, you could tell she was just like, oh, Jack,
her little spot of sunshine.
Yes, and so it was just awful. After questioning a series of half-assed confessions, a grand jury indicted Shawcross for Karen Hill's murder.
But not why?
On October 17th, 1972, he was allowed to plead guilty to a reduced charge of first-degree manslaughter for both deaths and was sentenced to an indeterminate term with a maximum of 25 years at Attica. So they were like, we can't really prove that he killed Jack. We only have his confession.
But yeah, I was gonna say, what the fuck?
Yeah, so the plea deal ignited outrage throughout the community. Loudest among them was Mary Blake. Like, I mean, this town, who overall they were kind of unkind to the Blakes because they were a rough family and everything, but this town really rallied around Mary Blake. Like, they would have like town hall meetings complaining about this plea deal, and everyone was like, yeah, Mary, get him and stuff. Like, everyone was very supportive of like what she was going through, and everyone was just as mad as she was. So Jefferson County District Attorney William McCluskey defended the deal by saying that aside from Shawcross's confession, there was no direct evidence tying him to Jack Blake's murder. So they made a deal with the devil. And Arthur Shawcross was sent.
Was there anything tying him to the killing of the little
they had
girl?
Some
like they
witnesses.
had witnesses.
Mm-hmm. So I think
even just on that charge alone, they could have probably gotten him
a lot
life
more
in prison. Like, not. I mean, they could have done homicide on that instead of manslaughter.
Exactly. So, it really was a deal with the devil. After 14 years behind bars, 14 years for killing two precious angels. Prison staff and social workers, many of them inexperienced, decided that Arthur Shawcross was no longer dangerous. This decision was made while conveniently ignoring multiple psychiatrists who had assessed Shawcross as a schizoid psychopath. They made lots of reports, and everyone else at the jail was like, they don't mean that.
They got the wrong Shawcross.
Even his own parole officer wasn't buying it, saying, at the risk of sounding melodramatic, I consider this man to be possibly the most dangerous individual to be released to this community in many years. But he was released anyways. In April of 1987, 14 years. Again, he was there 14 years for killing two innocent, sweet little babies who he sexually molested,
and then cannibalized.
Oh, God, it's awful. Somehow, and this is a theme, Art once again managed to swindle a woman into falling in love with him while he was still incarcerated.
Wait, where's the third one? Did she divorce him?
Yeah, Penny divorced him.
Okay.
Later, he says, I divorced Penny in 1975 because she refused to visit me. And then everything else is like, Penny divorced him. Because of, like, the murdering kids.
Yeah.
Eventually, he acquired a new prison pen pal named Rosemarie Wally. And it was into her custody that Arthur Shawcross was paroled in 1987. his mother was like, do not come back here. And parole board was like, yeah, we kind of agree with her because we think people like are gonna kill you in Watertown. You probably shouldn't go back there. And Mary Blake was like,
It don't matter where you go for me.
Yeah, I have a driver. Yeah,
track you down.
Yeah, and so, but like on top of that, I mean, his mother they kept in contact when he was in prison, but she never went to visit him. Like, he would call or they would write, but that was it. His mother was like, don't come back here. Ugh. And so, the very public resettlement of a convicted child killer in the Binghamton, area in New York was met with like immediate outrage. First of all, in Binghamton, like only the year before, one of the detectives, he was on the police force. He wasn't in patrol when it happened, but his daughter was taken on her paper route and killed. And so the first place they put this child killer is in the town that is just like recovering from this. And so this police officer gets wind of, now we have, they did tell the parole board told them in this town that he was coming there. And in honor of his daughter who had died, they made a new park named after her, and it had, it was for kids and everything. It had a pavilion and it had playground and everything, and maybe a pool was there too. And so he would patrol this park all the time because it was where he felt close to his daughter. Well, as he's patrolling it, there's this weird fucking dude there in the middle of the day.
See, I was gonna say this might actually be a good thing though, because having that fresh on everybody's mind, I think might make them more vigilant and more.
And so
aware.
He sees this fat, ugly, he's like, who the fuck are you? And stuff. And knowing there's this new child killer who has tried to settle there, these people fucking ran him out of town. I mean, they did everything except for like carry the pitchforks and have their things afire. Like, they got him out of town so quick. The parole board was like, okay. So they ran him out of town. He went to one other town, where they told the area, and it took a little bit longer, but he was ran out of that town. And so like in the dead of night, the parole board picked up Shawcross and Whaley, his new girlfriend Rose, and relocated them to Rochester, New York, and sealed his and they didn't tell Rochester.
Nobody knew. No.
So nobody knew that a child killer had just been dropped into their jurisdiction. Parole officers initially dumped the couple at a seedy motel, and then eventually they settled into an apartment at 241 Alexander Street. Rose had given up her entire life for art. They couldn't even marry yet because she was still divorcing her husband.
Oh, I was going to say, because he's still married?
Nope.
No, because Penny Nickel.
Her children were understandably horrified by her infatuation with a man who had murdered children, and they distanced themselves from her. So I don't think they completely cut her off, but almost essentially. So Rose even quit her longtime job and followed Art around the state as the parole board shuffled him from town to town. Like, she had been in one place her whole life. She had had a very good job that she loved, had been there a long time, and she was like, bye, you guys are being mean to my boyfriend. Rose. So she just was along for the ride as each move was triggered by locals showing up with their pitchforks. And they found out who he was. So Art eventually found work at a grocery store cutting up vegetables, and by all accounts, he was a good employee. Good enough that his bosses didn't ask too many questions about his past. They did have to pull him aside once, though, when a younger female employee reported that Art was bothering her. Art exploded over the accusation, but calmed down like just as quickly. He was like, well, she's always saying these things to me. I thought she was like coming on to me or something. And the lady did have like she would joke around with him kind of sexually, but like she wasn't like, grab my boob at work, So one day, that same young woman, her mother came into the store to pick up her daughter. The mom and Art locked eyes, and according to her later, it was love at first sight. She said her body had an electric reaction to him. And to that I say, it wasn't chemistry. It was probably your intuition screaming. That man is dangerous.
Is he good looking or something?
When he was younger, he wasn't bad. But by this point, I mean, he's only like 40, 42 or something like that. Man looks like he's in his 70s. Like, he is, the belly on this guy doesn't look real. It is perfectly round. It looks like that Bert Kreischer, but even worse.
So I've never actually seen Bert Kreischer. I just get to hear a lot about Bert Kreischer.
Should look him up. So it was crazy. Like, I don't know, but she was like, I just could tell, like, he was the one for me. And I stand 10 toes down and say, I think that was your, like, all your senses being like, danger, predator. Her name was Clara Neal, and she didn't register any of that. She ignored every warning sign, and she assisted to her daughter, the same daughter that had reported being sexually harassed by Art.
I was gonna say, did her daughter be like,
No. She made her daughter invite him over for dinner as soon as possible, and soon Clara was spending nearly all of her free time with Shawcross, fully aware that every single night he went home to his apartment that he shared with Rose.
Yeah, I was going to say, what happened
who
to
he
her?
had married by now. They finally were married by this point.
Is this number 4?
Number 4. Yep. Dang. So he's married. He's got a side piece. Once again, Arthur Shawcross was exactly where he thrived most, protected by other people's denial. Like, I don't know how he did it. I just don't get it. Feeling trapped in his marriage to Rose, who Art claimed he was only tethered to because of the conditions of his parole. He was paroled into her care. So he's like, I have to stay with Rose. He threw himself headfirst into his affair with Clara. Clara was a Clay County, West Virginia native, 10 years older than Art. Again, they don't look any different in age, though, with the grown children. And I'm just going to say it plainly, Clara was all the way crazy about Art and just, like, in general. Oh my God. She ignored every fucking red flag imaginable, including the fact that Art would, like, slap her around and pinch her so hard that she'd be covered in bruises. Her kids were like, what the fuck?
It's just a little foreplay?
Yeah. She's like, oh, they're just love bites. And people are like, okay, you look like a punching bag. So, yeah. And she also didn't, like, pick up on the fact that he only rode a bike. He didn't have a, driver's license. He'd only show up at weird hours. Like, she was like, it's fine. I love him so much. Clara. When Art wasn't juggling his job, his wife, and his obsessive side piece, he was usually riding his bike all over Rochester or fishing in the deep gorge of the Genesee River along the city's outskirts.
What is the Genesee?
Genesee. Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. When you first said it, I thought you, like, just mispronounced Tennessee.
Think so. Happens so much. That's a fair thing to think. Yeah. Somehow none of this raised alarms. According to parole officials and the mental health counselor Shawcross was required to see, he appeared to be doing just fine. He appeared to be adjusting to parole reasonably well, said parole official Mr. Elwin. He worked every day, he was home when he had to be, and he didn't have any negative reports. At the moment, I have not seen anything that raises any warning signs. That ability to blend in and to behave just well enough allowed Shawcross to return to killing, completely undetected. Apparently unsatisfied by either his wife or his obsessive mistress, Shawcross began frequently seeing prostitutes. By March of 1988, less than a year after his release, he started murdering prostitutes. Over the next 2 years, Shawcross would kill 12 women in Rochester. Yeah. And the fact that it went on for 2 years, oh my God. To the absolute bafflement of police, they couldn't identify the John who was picking up the women off the street and making them disappear like a ghost. And one thing that they did do was, like, let's see who's new in town, who's on parole. That'll throw up some, like, suspects.
But his files were sealed.
Absolutely. So he wasn't on their radar at all. Nothing.
Did it take him a while to figure out that the prostitutes were going missing too? I know, like,
actually,
some serial killers target prostitutes because of the lack of family and stuff like that.
And sometimes they're considered less dead in police.
Yeah.
Actually, this is crazy. This is the only story I've ever heard of this. But to the Rochester's police credit, they took the disappearances seriously and, like, knew about them very quickly. I think the first one, when she went missing, they obviously knew about it, but they were like, well, her lifestyle. And then on the second one, I think they were like, fuck. So they were...
Something's going on.
Yeah, and they knew.
Okay.
They took the disappearances very seriously, and that's not always the case, just like you said, when it comes... I mean, the Green River Killer went on for fucking ever, and it was all prostitutes, and yeah. So when these killings started, Lieutenant James Bono later said, in The Misbegotten Son, the book that I'll put in the show notes, I got a lot of information from that. It's a very... a little too thorough book. We figured we were going to need the cooperation of every prostitute. At any given time, about 35 women worked in that area, and it's the area of one of them was it'll be in here, but it was just this, their little red light district, I guess. Police sat in unmarked cars watching them. I mean, these guys were like, we know these women, we know their schedules, we know where to find them. So if we haven't seen one of them, we know where to check in with them. And these guys sat there every single night in unmarked police cars watching them. And
all that, and they were still able to get 12 of them, huh?
Yes. And
that's crazy to me.
Yeah. And they just would let the girls work. Like, no one was in trouble for what they were doing. They just wanted to make sure, like, they'd take down license plate.
Yeah, I just feel like they would, like, be able to form, like, some sort of sisterhood also.
Yeah.
Where they watched out for themselves and all that. So.
And a lot of them did that. A lot of them started working in pairs. But one of the ladies who didn't get... Actually, she survived. I think she was with him and told police, like, this guy... But he's using a different name. But... she's like, well, I was working with this one girl and she was really sweet, but she just did so much, like, coke, and she would, like, walk away, and when we were supposed to be watching, she was like, so I just couldn't rely on her and stuff. And I'm like, you guys are killing me. There is a picture, I think it was one of the funerals for one of the working girls, and the women showed up to this, during the day, all of the other sex workers, and they all looked so fucking fabulous. Like, these women were dressed like furs. Their hair was... I was like, you guys are amazing. I was like, it looks like a fashion show. Yeah. I'll be like, I'm wearing this. She asked me to. No. So they just let them work and were trying to find this guy. The women were wary, though. They weren't convinced that this would turn into a mass bust. They were like, can we trust cops? Neither side was used to, like, working with each other. So the cops were like, and the women were, but they also felt safer. They were like, well, unfortunately, that sense of safety was just an illusion because women kept disappearing. The first was 27-year-old Dorothy Blackburn, and she disappeared March 24th, 1988, and her body was pulled from the Genesee River. She had been brutally attacked, strangled, and she had bite marks on her groin. Ugh. Next came Anna Steffen, and she was discovered in September of 1989. She had died of strangulation, and her body had been dumped in the Genesee. Yeah, that's your fault. Genesee River Gorge. On October 21st, 1989, the body of a 15-year-old homeless woman named Dorothy Keeler was found. Dorothy Keeler was not a sex worker. She was homeless, and she would clean Art and Rose's house.
So she was an easy target.
Yeah, and Art said he had to kill her because she stole like $3 from him one day when she was cleaning. 6 days later, another prostitute, Patricia Ives, was discovered in the same area. Both of these women have been strangled to death. By then, the press was paying attention, and all the murders were linked, and the offender was dubbed the Genesee River Killer. As prostitutes continued vanishing, police began to suspect the killer was someone familiar with the women, like a regular client. He must have them so comfortable that they're not worried about going with him. Meanwhile, Art was living it up with his double life. At home, he had Rose, who was very cowed and terrified because Art had random unprovoked outbursts that were escalating into physical abuse. Still, she catered to his every whim and never asked where he was at night. Most nights when Art fled the Alexander Street apartments, he went straight to Claire's house. Clara later told police that she saw Art about 5 times a week, and they slept together about 2 times a week. And she emphasized repeatedly that the sex was very vanilla, nothing weird, nothing rough. He's an angel. He's so sweet. He's the best. And they're like, okay, Clara, sure thing. But when Clara went to bed early so she could be well rested for work, she went to work at like 5 a.m. or something every day. Art would kiss her goodnight and then take her car to cruise the red light district. So he's using Clara's car to kill women with. And then he'd drop it, or he'd pick her up to go to work each morning. And it's crazy. Oh, during this whole time, like, Rose knows that he's hanging out with Clara. The 3 of them, like, hang out together. And Clara would be like, yeah, we kind of bully Rose. Like, you sit in the back.
Do you know that they were having an affair together? Or they just
I'm
that
sure
they were, like,
she
friends
knew, but she was so afraid of Art that she wouldn't bring it up. So... How is he doing this? Eventually, police...
I need to see a picture of this guy.
You'll be like, what? What? Eventually, police pieced together a description of a regular John known as Mitch or Mike. And the women said he was prone to violence. One older prostitute, Joanne Van Nordstrand, told police about a John named Mitch she'd been with one night who made her deeply uncomfortable. But honestly, besides Joanne's incident right here, nobody else was like, yeah, Mitch. Like, nobody else really had.
So he was quite a regular.
Yeah, yeah. So, and he was strange, she said. He was nervous. He talked about the strangler, took her far out of the usual area and asked her to pretend that she was dead. He was real nervous, Joanne later said in the TV show The Mind of a Serial Killer, and that made me nervous. Little things kept clicking and the hairs on the back of my neck started standing up. So she was like, this is the guy, you know.
Yeah.
She pulled a knife on him. She always carried a knife, and she told him she would fucking use it if she had to. She was like, hey. And he seemed to like, he wasn't upset. He like respected her for it. He was like, okay, girl. So weird. Still, she was sure he tried reaching for her throat several times. She had to be like, stop it. Stop it.
While she was pretending to be dead.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He wanted to see her again after everything. He gave her produce from the grocery store where he worked. He was like, here's some oranges, babe. Like, he asked her to meet our children. He was like, let's hang out. Let's take your kids fishing. Like, blah, blah. And she was like,
you could be wife number
89.
Yeah, 5'6", something like that.
My side piece. Yeah. Thankfully, Joanne was like, maybe, and avoided him and reported the encounter to police. On November 15th, Kimberly Logan, a black prostitute from Lydale Avenue area, and that was the Lyle, sorry, it's spelled weird. Lyle Avenue is where all of these women were kind of being taken from. That was their area. She was found dead beneath a pile of leaves in someone's backyard. She had been beaten and kicked in the abdomen, and leaves and grass were stuffed down her throat.
In someone's backyard?
Yeah. Some of these women were found by like little kids playing. Yeah. Like, oh my God. They're just trauma on trauma on trauma. Then on Thanksgiving Day, the body of 26-year-old June Stott was discovered. June was neither a prostitute nor a drug user. She had been strangled, anally mutilated after death, and then her private parts had been removed, and she had been like from throat to crotch, just like a deer would be. It was super. So that was really escalated because everyone else had been strangled, there wasn't things done after the fact.
So what was she then if she wasn't a sex worker?
Yeah, I think she just kind of lived in the area.
Just wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah, and so, it's bad. Then the discovery of Elizabeth Gibson's body on November 27th finally gave police a break. Witnesses had seen her with Mitch shortly before she vanished. Still, they didn't know who the fuck Mitch was, Then on December 31st, 1989, a pair of discarded jeans were found near the river. Inside was an ID belonging to Felicia Stevens. Because they just found these jeans, they were like, she's got to be here somewhere. But this is a huge area. Mm-hmm. It was almost like marshy, swampy kind of area, but it was December 31st, so it was all frozen and it had snowed. So they decided to do a aerial search on January 3rd, 1990. So they found the jeans on the 31st. Then it was like New Year's, and then they kept trying to go out and the wind would get too bad. I was like, I'll get that. So finally on January 3rd, they're in the helicopter and they are searching the area, and they've spotted what appeared to be a naked female body laying on the frozen surface of the river near a bridge. So roads going over it. It's almost like a culvert going over, road going over a culvert. It's not a huge bridge or anything. And she looks to be right there, right below. Okay. It wasn't Felicia Stevens. It was June Cicero, and officers were stunned. June Cicero was one of the most, this is how they described her, streetwise sex workers in Rochester.
They were looking for someone else, and they found a different body. Mm-hmm. Jesus. Okay.
And they were all just stunned that it was June. Like, they probably saw her right before she got in his car. They had literally been talking to her before she was like, I'm going out for one more client, and I'm done. Yeah. Because they're like, dude, go inside. It's cold. This man's out here. And she was talking to the police, and she laughed, and she told them that she wasn't afraid of the man. In fact, he should be afraid of her. And the cops were like, there's some truth to that. Like, dude's a tough bitch.
Crazy.
Yeah. And so, but June had taken, as I said, one final trick that night, and it was a fatal mistake. She had been strangled and mutilated after death. So, yeah, she again had pieces of her taken away after. Yeah. And now the Genesee River Killer wasn't just a nickname. He was real, and he was out there.
Did they ever find the lady who the pants belonged to, though?
Yeah.
Did they end up finding her? Okay.
They did. I think she was there was one they had to have, and she was close by, but he had put her in some trees, and so they had to have him go help find her. Okay. I guess because they were like, we know she's missing. We found her stuff. Even more importantly, as the helicopter drifted closer to the frozen body, officers spotted something else. A man standing on the bridge next to a small van. And he appeared to be either masturbating or urinating. And he's standing right over June Cicero's body as the police are flying over.
Is there any way that the guy could have been standing there and not seen the body?
No.
Okay.
There wasn't even like a railing on the bridge. There wasn't a bridge rail or anything like that. Nope. Okay. So the people, so for once the investigators' worst suspicions were correct. Arthur Shawcross, or the murderer Mitch, had returned to the scene of one of his crimes to like relive the pleasure of the crime. They were like, they had a profile come in, and they were like, we think he revisits because some of them were starting to have the mutilation after. And so they were like, well, and it just, everything happened at once. I mean, he was right there as they're flying. You fucking idiot. Anyways, officers.
It's a fucking helicopter. You can't.
Yeah.
I've never heard of a stealthy helicopter.
Right. Yeah. Like, you didn't hear that a while ago? Officers in the helicopter radioed ground units and asked to go check the man out. But Shawcross by this time had noticed the aircraft circling overhead, and he was like, oh.
Pulled that shit back in.
Yeah. He climbed into the van, the same vehicle he had used for the past 2 years to kidnap, rape, and murder women, and drove towards Claire's workplace where he was supposed to be picking her up from work. Ground units followed him.
It's a normal weekday.
Yeah, just another day. In fact, he was there probably masturbating, but he had packed a lunch and was sitting there eating his lunch over this dead body before the police had shown up. He told them later, this guy's fucking Oh, the worst. So ground units followed him the entire way along with the helicopter overhead. And at that point, investigators didn't believe they had been lucky enough to stumble upon the killer standing over the body. But some of them were hopeful. They were like, we just need to talk to this guy. But when Art reached Claire's job just minutes before police arrived, he waddled his ass inside and casually told her that he thought the police might be following him. Apparently because he had been peeing on the side of the road. Yeah, they sent out helicopters for that. Yep. When the officers arrived, they asked Art to step outside and requested identification from him. And that's when Art told them he didn't have a driver's license because he had been convicted of manslaughter years earlier. And that got their attention. They were like, really? Could you come? Yeah, can you come down to the station? We just want to chit chat just a little bit more. And Art agreed. He, at the station, Shawcross insisted it was all just a coincidence. He claimed he's simply been driving around, stopped to take a piss, and had no idea that there was a body below in the Salmon Creek. He hadn't even seen anything. What he didn't say was that he had parked there deliberately, that he'd brought his lunch, and he'd sat above the frozen body and eaten. He's like, no. And once he had finished, he had masturbated over the dead body until a police helicopter had ruined the moment. It took time.
Police helicopters.
It took time to break him. Shawcross dodged questions, deflected, delayed until investigators made a calculated move. They expressed horror at the idea that Claire's car had been used for the past 2 years to kidnap, rape, and murder women. They openly wondered in front of Art whether Clara actually might be involved too. And Art, somehow, the child molesting murderer who only ever looked genuinely happy when he was describing imaginary killings in Vietnam, immediately shut that down. Clara was not involved. She's not going down for this. Okay.
So he had some feelings for her or something.
He does, if he did talk about anything else during questioning, he'd be like, where is Clara? Is Clara okay? Because they took her down to the station too. He never asked for, I think he did eventually ask for a rose, but he basically, when she walked in, he was like, it's over between us. In doing so, he made his first real admission to he's involved by saying Clara isn't. So from there, the rest came quickly. Shawcross confessed to every murder. But it did take some time because 2 of the women who were killed were African American, and he was like, no, I didn't kill them. And they were like, you can tell us, are you really being a racist right now? But one of those women are the ones that had the grass and leaves shoved down her throat. So it's like,
okay, so very
shut up. So he eventually did own up to all of them. With each one, he explained that he had to do it because the victim had done something to deserve it. One tried to steal his wallet. One wouldn't be quiet. One mocked him. Another, he claimed, nearly bit off his wiener. So he had to kill these women. I wish you would have done it, girl. He blamed many of them for reminding him of his domineering, abusive mother. Once he started hitting them, he said he couldn't stop. In fact, Art's mother had refused to see him since his release 2 years earlier. She would take his calls, but mostly tell him what a piece of shit he was and how much she hated him.
Stop calling.
Yeah. And he would, and then he'd be like, oh no, she's so mean. He would try to find these gifts, and they were very poor, him and Rose. I mean, they didn't have a lot of money, and so he would go to secondhand stores and try and find the most beautiful thing he could to send to his mother, and his mother would call and be like, next time get something that is new. Yeah. And then one time this man had to put,
he's gross.
Yeah, he's the worst. No, but she sucks. I don't know that she did all of the stuff that he said when he was younger, but she's not great. And then one time for Christmas, he went and bought something from a department store. I mean, it was really expensive. He had to put it on a payment plan and stuff, and he sent it to his mom. And she, his sister called after Christmas and said that his mom had called it garbage. So, yeah. And so, according to his wife, Rose, it was often after these calls that Art would storm out of the house and stay out all night, killing women. So finally, Arthur Shawcross went to trial in November of 1990. He pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. While awaiting trial, he was interviewed repeatedly by doctors, detectives, and mental health professionals, and his stories shifted depending on his audience. Female interviewers were subjected to graphic descriptions of how much he enjoyed cutting out and eating body parts, and male interviewers heard endless tales of his supposed combat kills in Vietnam. So, depending on who was interviewing him, he was like, I'm going to get a rise out of him. If he sensed sympathy, he'd add lurid details about alleged childhood abuse. And then other people, he would just tailor all of his stories. He appeared too transparent, so transparent that many interviewers doubted he was everything he claimed, and with good reason. None of Shawcross's allegations about his family or Vietnam were ever corroborated. Many were outright disproven, especially his Vietnam shit.
Yeah.
At trial, his defense clapped rather quickly. His family denied all abuse claims. Again, some of them were like, we don't even have a family member with that name. Like, we don't know. The Army provided documentation proving that Shawcross had never fought in combat at all, never had even been stationed near a jungle, and never burned huts, never went on patrols, and never killed anyone in Vietnam. 2 psychiatrists testified that his cannibalism stories changed so frequently that they were impossible to believe. But if you listen to him when he started like mutilating the women and everything, he was...
Why would you lie about that?
Why would you even... Oh my God. So the jury wasn't fooled. And after 30 minutes of deliberation, they found him very sane and guilty. Arthur Shawcross was sentenced to 250 years in prison, 25 years for each of the 10 victims. There's 12 victims, so I don't know if there were like... Oh, that's because some of them ended up being in a different county. So he would go on to just like plead guilty to life sentences on those because he was like, I got 250 years in this other county. So he spent the rest of his life in the Sullivan Correctional Facility in New York, and he seemed to enjoy himself. He finally married Clara in 1997 in a prison visiting room.
She stuck with him? Mm-hmm. Bitches be fucking crazy, I will tell you. The fuck?
That's that. It was nice and all, she said. It took 10 years to make the grade, but I finally did it. Clara, you need to go to therapy. Shawcross also finally discovered that he had a daughter from his fling in Hawaii, and they developed a close relationship. Like, she just loves the guy. She's like, he's the best dad. While incarcerated, Art continued granting interviews, never once expressing remorse. I mean, this man has never felt sorry. There's one of the women that he's kind of like, I think it was June Stott, the one that wasn't a prostitute. She didn't use drugs. So that was the only one that seemed to kind of bother him.
That's what he seems like have mutilated the most too, right?
Yes,
That's what
he did so much. Yes. So,
okay.
He repeated claims that that had been disproven at trial. I mean, people came in and disproved these things, but he kept talking about them. He altered details freely, apparently unconcerned that anyone could verify the truth by watching footage of his very highly publicized trial. I mean, people were obsessed with this trial, and it was one of the first like video or, put on the news and live streamed, I guess. I don't know what you'd call it back then.
They just call it TV back then.
Yeah. It's just TV. Again, it would depend on who was like talking to him, and he would lean into different stories to shock interviewers, especially about like the cannibalism angle.
Yeah, that just
it's awful.
So I will say though, is like as shocking as it is that he did go to kill 12 women and stuff, I'm just very, very grateful that it was not 12 more children.
Oh, I know.
So
it's awful that he did any of it. And it's such a, and this is why he's very interesting, because you don't hear about him a lot compared to some other serial killers.
It really is odd that he, switched, victims like that.
Yes,
normally,
that is unheard of a lot.
If you're sexually assaulting and killing children, and then that's your victim, and what you go after is to sit there and switch it like that. It's just
and everyone who talks to him is like, we actually can't get a handle on this guy. He is an outlier in a lot of ways. I mean, some
and
other
then
things.
his first victim being a male boy.
Exactly.
And then the rest were all female. So that's also...
It's wild. And you don't hear that a lot at all.
Yeah.
So some interviews he'd really lean into the cannibalism stories to shock interviewers. And then other time interviewers would ask him about those and he would react with visible disgust. He'd be like, I am not talking about that. How dare you? So he would just, change it up every single time. On one subject, however, he was always consistent. He refused to discuss the murders of Jack Blake and Karen Ann Hill. He's never talked about them publicly. Ever. And this man was talking to everybody for a while there. No matter what you believe about Arthur Shawcross and his stories, one thing is undeniable.
He's fucking gross.
He's so gross. And he was one of the most sadistic and gruesome killers in modern history.
I don't know how I haven't heard about him before.
I know. It's really because it's not like he was. He had so many people and so much different. Oh God, it's awful. And he was released after murdering children, only to kill again. That's another huge part of the story. You motherfucker. So. On November 10th, 2008, Arthur Shawcross complained of leg pain and was taken to the hospital. And there, thankfully, he fucking died of a heart attack.
I say blood clot.
I hope it was painful. And with that is the story of Arthur Shawcross.
I didn't like that one.
I'm so sorry. It had to be. I knew about it, so now you guys have to.
I am. I'm very surprised that I haven't heard about him.
It's wild because
he seems like he would be right up there with the whole Gacy Bundy.
You would think, and because just his. I could go on and on because it's just. I think that's why these true crime stories always I've always been drawn to him because I don't understand how people get to this point, and the psychology of it is always really. And this guy, I'm like, I got through all of that, and I have no fucking idea.
And just the whole psychology with the women too. I mean, not that were his victims, but that Claudia, is that her name? Who was this? The
Clara.
Side piece, Clara. To be a side piece and this and that and everything. Find out that you murdered all these women and this and that, and then be like, I'm gonna marry you.
It's how did you two fuckers find each other?
Yeah,
I feel like if he was like, I need your help.
Wonder, did she have something to do with it?
Yeah, how could somebody just be okay with that?
Yeah.
Or not question his, where he was going all the time. And is that blood in my car I let you borrow every fucking night? It's all really bad.
They're just well, I know that he kills, but that keeps him from, beating on me, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Or, something like that. What the fuck?
Clara, what? So, and even at his trial, there's pictures of Rose, she goes to his trial, she supports him and stuff. And so he must have, after the fact, had to have been we're getting a divorce. We're getting a divorce. I love Clara and stuff. Because, he went to jail in 1990 and they didn't get married until 1987. So, but Rose was supporting him too. What the fuck? Anyways, so sorry about that. Thank you so much for listening to Storyteller. Tell your friends. Join us on Instagram.
At storyteller.pod.
On TikTok.
At StorytellerPod.
Facebook.
At Storyteller Podcast.
And be sure to follow, comment, and download the podcast on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Even though I'm not as good as YouTube, I'll get there. Wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Gross.
Ew.
I don't like this.
Immediately hate it.